Hi, everybody. It's that magical time of the year again when we are celebrating a new year and the Earth's journey around the sun. And these celebrations and observations are very ancient and were practiced by our ancestors as great astronomical or agricultural events. We can even go back into the ancient Egyptians who would observe this time of the year when the Nile would flood. It also happened to be when the star Sirius was rising. We can also look at the Phoenicians and the Persians who began their new year with the spring equinox. The Greeks celebrated it on the winter solstice. The first day of the Chinese New Year was after the second moon of the winter solstice. And one of the earliest records we can get of New Year's celebrations is going back into the ancient Babylonians with their festival called Akatu, which is a Sumerian word for barley, and it is about the personification of Marduk conquering the evil sea goddess Tiamat. And of course, there's a whole other mythology there if you look to the works of Zechariah Sitchin and how these are the personification of other legends and stories with Mars and the asteroid belt. But that's a whole other different story. And there are other calendars, by the way. There's lunar calendars and all sorts of observations that we take into account here. But in order to understand our New Year's celebrations, which are nothing new that you see people drinking and having fun and partaking in various festivities, these are really based on our observation from the Gregorian calendar, which came from the Julian calendar, and we have to look at what it means to have a celebration of the god Janus or January. And Janus, the Roman god, traditionally looked in both directions, looked to the past and the future, which then we have to examine where our tradition of making New Year's resolutions came from, or setting intentions for the best version of ourselves that we can be for the coming year. And this also brings up an excellent topic today I want to discuss with all you, which is looking at our past, having regrets, and how to take our mistakes and turn them into our strengths. Now, I also want to tell you all about Dr. Steve Maraboli, who I think does great work. He's a self-help speaker. Also, he likes to explore the human potential. He's written some wonderful books, such as Unapologetically You, which I highly recommend that you all go out and get it. He gives away the profit from his books, by the way, to various charitable causes. So he's a great philanthropist. But he says we all make mistakes, have struggles, and even regret things in our past. But you are not your mistakes. You are not your struggles. And you're here now with the power to shape your day and your future. Now, I think that this is profound wisdom. We all have regrets in our past, or maybe we've said something that we didn't mean to someone that hurt their feelings. I know I have. I haven't lived an idyllic life. I most certainly have made mistakes in my life, or maybe you've associated with the wrong people, or been in a negative relationship, or you've just done things in general that you regret. Now, Dr. Steve Maraboli also says, there are times in my life when I have been medicine for some while poison for others. I used to think I was a victim of my story until I realized the truth that I am the creator of my story. I choose what type of person I will be and what type of impact I'll leave on others. I will never choose the destructive path of self and outward victimization again. And I think that this is brilliant advice. Absolutely incredible that once we gain insight through our experiences, because time brings change and change brings time. And what is time really? It's just a fractal of the star tetrahedron or Merkaba that the universe is being emulated from, and essentially it is just the fourth dimension. It's part of this time-space reality that we're in, and it's all for our experience and all for our learning. Another way that we can look at time is that it's working through a sort of simultaneity. So if we're present in the now and we correct something in our mind, we're correcting it in the past and the future at the same time. But essentially, if you could regret something in your past, that means you have grown as a person, and you're not the same person that you used to be. In fact, every 7 years, our bodies change, our cells change, our insights, our biology, our physiology changes. So you are a different person than you used to be. In fact, happiness is something that we gain through insight and through our deeds. In the Arabian Nights, it says happiness must be earned. And we also get a wonderful reminder in Dr. Steve Maraboli's work, who says that happiness is not the absence of problems, it's the ability to deal with them. If you have problems in your life, or you're facing difficulties, the best thing you can do is to face them head on with good philosophy and good insight, and you can transmute them, just like the alchemist that would transmute base metals and turn them to gold. So you can use inner alchemy to transform these into various types of knowledge and wisdom and insights, so you can help yourself and others along the way. I'm also reminded of the work of Manly P. Hall, who has talked over and over again about not letting the past ruin your future, not having regrets. In fact, he urged everyone to see their past as a great laboratory full of different experiments that you're doing in life. And when you look at your past in such a way, then you learn to see your mistakes as lessons. So when you lose, don't lose the lesson, because there is so many valuable things that you can take away from them, and nothing happens by accident. In fact, there are universal laws all around us. Some have called these karma. Some have called these universal laws, as they do in Star Wars, the Force or the Tao. But it's true when you have this sort of Dharma perspective, that when you do good and you understand the laws of being of service to others, that you're actually being of service to self. And this is mentioned in the Raw Law of One series as well, that there are these sort of universal laws that if we keep them, that they will keep us. And there's a sort of electromagnetic safety and whatnot that we draw to us. And the ancient Rosicrucians believed something very similar to this, as they believed in the golden wedding garment, which is mentioned in the Bible, also as the bridal chamber of Christ, that this is sort of the garment of the soul that you're weaving. And we also see this in the Buddhist and Zen philosophies with the happiness tree, or the jeweled tree, or happiness garden, that your thoughts, your actions, and your words are sort of like these seeds that you're nourishing and you're planting, and you're seeing them grow, whereas these negative habits and regrets and negative thoughts, these are all like weeds that are growing in our garden. What the Buddha said is, everything we are is the result of what we have thought. But truly, one of the greatest things that you could do for this coming year is to let go of things that no longer serve you. Let go of those things that weigh you down. Learn to forgive others and let go of those old grudges. They no longer are doing anything for you. And this is a great time to start fresh, clean the slate, and let it go. You're not responsible for how others feel. You're only responsible for yourself. Which brings up another great topic, is the idea of penance. Now, the religious act of penance is that if there's something that you really can't let go of in your past that is weighing you down, or something you've done to others that's really truly bothering you, and again, that's a wonderful sign of growth, that you are not the same person you used to be. There's all sorts of new insight. You regret those things. That means that you are a whole new person, that you can dedicate a good deed to the memory of that which is troubling you. So if you neglected someone, a family member, or there was something that you felt that you could have done better, you have an opportunity now to make that up by doing a good deed for someone else. And this is especially great if someone's not around in your life anymore and you want to make amends for something that you have done to them or something you've been involved with. You can find somebody in a similar situation to them, and you can perform this good deed or this act. There's another thing I'm reminded of, is that this day and age, we're very fortunate that if we have an interaction with someone that's not around anymore, or we're trying to find someone we used to know 10, 15, 20 years ago, even though something that might be bothering us is probably not bothering them anymore, but it's more something that plays on our mind psychologically, that we can use social media or the internet to send them a message, or something very small, apologizing, or send them a positive reminder. But if they're not around anymore, you can also use what I call the spirit email system. Now, when I was a young boy, I remember my dad gave me a copy of How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And Carnegie had all kinds of different examples, and one that comes to mind is such as Abraham Lincoln, who, when he'd have a dispute with someone, would write a letter and just put it in a drawer, not necessarily give it to them. And there was sort of an incredible healing process that would take place. You know, sometimes when you're very upset with someone, you have words for them, or you want to say something, and the good wisdom is to wait before you have a conversation with someone when you're in that state. Well, you can use this incredible healing exercise for just about anything. And there's sort of a psychotherapeutical spiritual quality to this, is that we can write a letter to somebody, put it in a drawer, even if they're not around anymore, and I believe that they will get the message in spirit, or there'll be sort of a mental or telepathic exchange. And I believe there's also an exchange with the higher self, the subconscious, and a releasing of that burden, which is a very powerful act. Now, before we leave the topic of regrets and mistakes we've made in our past, many of us have gone through the dark night of the soul, or we've had to go through some trials and tribulations like the prodigal son of the Bible to sort of realize our true potential, to realize who we are, what we came here to do, because life is a school, not a playground. It can be a fun type of learning, but we're here to learn, we're here to experience. And I'm reminded again of what Dr. Steve Maraboli said. He said, every time I thought I was being rejected from something good, I was actually being redirected to something better. So this takes us back to the old wisdom that when one door closes, another door is always opening. So I want you to keep that in mind as we go towards this new year, which is absolutely an amazing time. There's great energy, new possibilities. There's a very real reason that you are here. So we have to keep this in mind when we're setting our intentions or our New Year's resolution, which is a very positive and powerful thing. Another important observation is getting to know the shadow self. And this is a term we get from Carl Jung, who said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. And what he means by that is that we all have a shadow self. We all have a part of ourselves that is capable of thinking negative thoughts. We've been angry at others before. We have held grudges. We have done things that we're probably not very proud of. And then we go around and we judge others for those things. And really, we are all capable of light and darkness. There's a yin and the yang there. And the best way of dealing with this is by saying, what you embrace, you erase. What you resist will persist. But you can't really embrace and erase until you face this. And my friend Tobias Lars has a great video on YouTube, and it's called, If You Want to Know God, You Got to Feel and Heal Your Shadow. It's absolutely great. Go check it out. But on this line of thinking, when we start to see this darkness in ourselves and we start to see it in others, we can also understand where others are coming from. And it goes back to the idea of when we are of service to others, we're also being of service to self, because we're all connected. Now, in order for us to tap into this process of setting a goal and realizing our intention, let us realize how powerful our words and our thoughts are. There's a book by Don Miguel Ruiz. He's written a few books in his Toltec Wisdom collection on the 4 agreements. But he talks about these various 4 agreements on if you're going to live your life, that you should pay attention to these rules. So the first one is to always be impeccable with your word. And this goes back to the old biblical wisdom. In the beginning was the word. And now whether that is talking about the laws of harmonics and string theory and vibrating strings coming from the mind of God, that's a whole other physics discussion. But everything that you're saying, your self, your true self, is listening to, you're hearing. And you are always creating and manifesting, telling time, shaping reality with language and our words. So be very impeccable with your words. When you say you're going to do something, do it and follow through. If this time of the year is a time when you're setting your goals, your New Year's resolution, and saying you're going to lose all this weight, and by the way, you don't want to lose weight because then you're going to find it again, so you want to drop it. But you are setting certain goals that you're going to eat healthier, or take better nutrients and vitamins such as your magnesium, the master mineral, or vitamin D3 and B12. Keep up with these resolutions. Stick to them, because you're actually weakening your willpower if you do not follow through. His rule number 2 is don't take anything personally. This is a great New Year's resolution to go towards this year with. If someone says something to you at a restaurant or somewhere that you go and it's a negative comment, this might not necessarily have anything to do with you, but it's just something that they're going through that day. Another one of these agreements is don't make assumptions, because assumption equals ass out of you and me, like the old Benny Hill show would demonstrate in the skits. If we assume something, it's not always correct, and it leads us into further difficulties. And of course, rule number 4 is always do your best. And this goes back to what we were just talking about with regrets. If you look back at something in your life and you see that a version of yourself that may have made a mistake or got into a relationship or done something at that time that you didn't have a lot of knowledge of, or you didn't have a lot of wisdom and life experience, well, then it's excusable. What is excusable in the boy is not always excusable in the man. So you're a different person now that has gained new insight and new wisdom. So when we go to create something in our life, this is a very good thing to do. And it goes back even to the ancient Pythagoreans. To the ancient Pythagoreans, they were instructed to plan out their day and write it out. So when you have a goal, the greatest thing you can do is, first of all, dream it up. Think about your goal. Talk about it out loud. Write it down on a piece of paper. When you write it out, you're starting to materialize it. You're blueprinting it. You're bringing it into fruition. Don't talk about your goals to people who don't necessarily have your best interests. It's like the old wisdom says, when you win, always watch who doesn't clap. And, everyone's going to have their haters or someone who's jealous of them. As, while we are all connected and while we are all part of the one, we are also individualistic. And, at the same time, there's great things that we can grow from and learn about this experience. But sometimes when you share a goal or something really big with someone who doesn't necessarily have your best interest, they're going to throw some shade on that goal, or they're going to talk you out of it, or they're going to say why it wouldn't work. So really keep that focus, keep it positive, keep good energy towards what you want to do, and you can really work towards making that the best version of you. Now, I also want to talk about self-hypnosis. As many of you know, I have worked with clinical hypnotherapy, and this is something I'm very passionate about. I love looking at the mind as our playground and how we can shape our reality through our thoughts and our words. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you a couple principles of hypnosis and how the mind works. When you and I are having a conversation, if we're talking, we're in beta mode or hyper beta mode. And this means our brainwaves are oscillating a little bit faster. And we're in this consciousness state where we're very much doing our critical thinking. And once you go into, you're watching television or you're reading a book, you're in a light trance. You're in what they call the alpha trance, or an alpha state. And as you get more relaxed, you go into what is known as your theta state. This is when you're falling asleep, and then you move into a delta, of course, which is our deepest or profound most level of sleep. Now, what's very interesting is that children that are from 0 to 3 years old are actually in the delta state, and actually they found it even in 5-year-olds as a predominant state, that they stay in this very deep level of consciousness. And as we're very young, we're moving out of that delta state into our thetas and alphas, and as teenagers we're fluctuating back and forth between all these various states, but even as adults we are still going in and out of these states while we're dreaming, working through our problems, recalling various memories of the subconscious and the unconscious. And this is an incredible place, because we start to see that the mind is working very much like an onion, that we have to peel back the layers to access where these various memories, beliefs, and emotions are stored. And what's very interesting is this pertains to where we learn a lot of our habits and where they come from. It's like Carl Jung said about the miniature world of the child. As the child goes through a miniature world, they kind of bring this map into their adulthood and how they see things. And so, again, there's another doctor out in Vancouver named Dr. Gabel Mate, and he has talked about how we gain a lot of our habits, or let's say addiction, which is an obsessive compulsive disorder that comes from a neural adaptation, but in some of this comes in utero. It comes even from what you're picking up in the womb, which is very, very interesting. We also tend to see this in our various states of consciousness, such as you see here. You have the rational mind and your willpower that's at the regular states of mind that you're working with throughout the day. Then we move into the subconscious mind, is who you are, your love, your beauty, your hate, your habits, any sort of permanent memories. Then we go down into your unconscious mind. This is at the very deep levels of consciousness, and this is where your immune system is, your automatic body functions, and of course your past life memories, if you're looking at this from a Dr. Michael Newton perspective. But in order to tap into a lot of these areas of the subconscious, we need to go deeper and deeper when you're working with people in a clinical hypnotherapy state. And these are done through inductions and watching physiological changes in the body. Now, when you go see a clinical hypnotherapist, or you're talking to someone that does neuro-linguistic programming or NLP, they're listening to you for how you talk and what your responses are. We have three main types of people. You have visual, you have kinesthetic, and auditorial. Now, a visual person is someone who says, I see, or I imagine, when they're having conversations with someone. Or if you're talking to an auditorial person, they'll probably say, well, I hear you. That sounds good to me. If you're talking to a kinesthetic person, they're saying, well, it feels like blank to me. So as a NLP or a clinical hypnotherapist, you would get this from a pre-interview with someone as you're building rapport. So what's great about this knowledge too is that once you know what kind of a learner you are, or what kind of trance words are going to work best for you, let's say you're a visual or a kinesthetic or an auditorial person, maybe you're a combination of the two, maybe you're a visual kinesthetic or an audio visual type of learner or person. These are the sort of trance words that you can use on yourself, or commands to help you achieve your goals. Perhaps it's going to sleep at night, so you would say that I feel myself getting sleepier and sleepier, and I see myself drifting off to sleep, or I feel these clouds underneath me. So these are the sort of things you want to keep in mind. You would use such induction words and language and commands to implant these in a person's subconscious mind, depending on where a certain memory is coming from or a habit is picked up. So we can also use these tools on ourselves in self-hypnosis to reprogram ourselves, or to strengthen our ideas in our mind for the coming year. And I'm going to teach you all a very easy self-hypnosis technique for this coming year, so that you can get the most out of your mind and let go of anything that no longer serves you. So what I want to teach you all is called the 5x5 technique. And it begins very simply by you just finding somewhere that is very relaxing, it's peaceful, you're not going to be disturbed. So close your door, turn off your cell phone, and just find a place alone. And this can also be done before you're going to sleep, or if you're in a situation where you're worked up, you have a lot of anxiousness or nervousness. It's sort of like a meditation. You want to pay attention to your breathing. And then we want to put our focus on our eyelids, because those are the smallest involuntary muscles in your body. So this technique begins with us counting down from 5 down to 1. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you want to say body sleep to yourself. And you can either say this softly out loud, or you can say it in your mind. But as you're doing this, you're going to be closing your eyelids very slowly. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, body sleep. And as you repeat this 5 times, there is going to be this releasing and letting go. And this is a little different than when we're doing regular clinical hypnotherapy, which would involve, counting down and moving down steps and elevators and shifting consciousness and moving into a trance state. So when you're using this technique, the 5x5 technique, then you want to give yourself positive, affirmative commands, and you don't ever want to have a negative binding statement with these. So, for example, if you're trying to eat healthier and you want to get rid of some weight that you're holding on to, you wouldn't want to say, I am not going to be eating unhealthy foods and junk food. You would say instead, I am eating healthier, feeling better, and my immune system is responding very positively. You can use these techniques to induce lucid dreaming, to help with astral projection, to do all sorts of great things that can really enhance your life. So with that all being said, I just want to remind you all to forgive often, let go of anything that no longer serves you, to move forward into this year being of service to others. And, I really also want to say it's been a pleasure to learn alongside everybody, and I'm really looking forward to us going on more great adventures together, learning lots of new things. I want to wish you all a very happy new year. If you like this video, please subscribe and like it, and I'll see you all very soon.